Today on the Quantum Shift podcast, we welcome Suzanne Ahrens, veteran evidential psychic medium, intuitive guide, as well as award-winning author whose work bridges the veil between this world and the next. Since childhood, Suzanne has experienced vivid premonitions as well as psychic impressions, from foreseeing injuries to intuitively sensing momentous events that over time evolved into fully realized mediumship practice. After enduring the loss of loved ones, including her father as well as her young daughter, she embraced those early gifts and committed to deep study and certification, training with renowned spiritual mediumship instructors and becoming Reiki certified, and even assisting law enforcement on missing person cases. Whether you're skeptical, grieving, or simply curious about what lies beyond, Suzanne invites you to open your mind and maybe, just maybe, catch a glimpse of something that transcends the ordinary. I very much enjoyed my conversation with Suzanne. She is deeply intuitive and highly entertaining. I promise you, you don't want to miss this one. It is fascinating. What was your earliest memory that told you that you were different, that you sensed something was kind of beyond the ordinary?
The first memory I have that something was really off was I had a intense deja vu. I was in middle school and I didn't realize what was happening until you're in the middle of it, right? So it was back then they had PE, physical education class. And so we were down doing this track and field exercise. And I was standing on a certain spot on the track and field and in the grass. And a certain person was going to come up to me and hand me the baton. And the whole thing actually happened exactly like I thought I had dreamt, or an intense deja vu. And it was just that one I remember so distinctly because I physically got ill. I physically felt dry heaving because it was just so intense. That was the first time that I really felt like something here is off. I shouldn't, I mean, I always had deja vu, but to have it that badly. And then I don't know, it was around that same age, I believe. Back in the day, I'm a farm kid, but I think they did this in the city as well, where they had May Day, right? May Day baskets. You'd even make it in school and you put little candy and treats in it and sometimes little notes. And then you would drop it off at the neighbor's house. You'd knock on the door or ring the doorbell and then race home before they could catch you. And if they caught you, they would kiss you, kiss you on the cheek. It was just this real innocent thing. So we had 4 kids across the road from us out in the country. And so we would do this May Day thing, and run like a bat out of hell back to your place. And I don't really remember what time of day. It was evening, and I remember being downstairs in my bedroom down there, and it was dark. We had no outdoor windows, so when you closed the door, it went pretty much pitch black in the room. And I remember laying in bed, and I heard somebody coming down the steps. And I thought, oh, are they coming to get me? Kind of deal,
Uh-huh.
right? Normally you get to your house and then you're off as soon as you go in your door. But I thought, I don't know what else it could be. And I remember laying there and I could hear the footsteps come into the bedroom where I was. And then I could hear the breathing next to the bed, I thought, right? So I'm laying there
You give me
and I
goosebumps.
can't hold my breath for any particular length of time, but I do remember holding it long enough because I didn't want to move, flinch, make any noise. I'm laying on a waterbed, so it's really woo, woo, woo like this. So anyways, I'm laying there and I could feel somebody press down on the waterbed between my knees on the bed slowly and then let go. And I can just remember now I'm starting to freak out because why aren't they saying something? Why didn't they flick on the light? Why didn't they do anything? And I just remember being paralyzed in fear laying there. And so I just froze. And the next thing I know, there was nothing. Like, nothing else. I could hear nothing, I could see nothing, I could sense nothing, and I just laid there paralyzed, probably only for another minute or 2, I suppose, but then I remember jumping up, flipping on the light, looking around, running upstairs, asking if anybody was there. I couldn't find anybody or any other answer. I asked all the other family members, "Did you guys come downstairs? Did you touch the bed?" 'Cause there had to be a logical explanation, right?
So remind me how old you were when that happened.
Well, I was laying on the waterbed I made, and I made that in shop class in school, so I had to have been in at least 11th grade, maybe even a senior by then.
That is utterly terrifying. All right. I mean, I was going to ask you, when did you first realize that you were a medium and a psychic, and how did you come to embrace that? Was that a moment? I mean, does your brain jump to that? Or no,
Gosh, no.
you're just
No, I
scared, you're
just
like,
blew it
"That's
off. I
weird,
just blew
what's
it off, that was
happening?"
my imagination.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
my
yeah.
imagination. Because
So
remember, I'm a farm girl. I grew up
right.
in the country. We had 3 TV stations and 2 of them were snowy. I mean,
Yeah.
we watched Lawrence Welk and Hee Haw and Happy Days and Leave It to Beaver. This wasn't a thing that was ever talked about. So
Okay.
I just blew it off as, imagination, even though I was wide awake. But, you never know. But for me, it was the real awakening really kinda happened, when our daughter passed away. As I got older, the déjà vu became more frequent and way more intense. Um, and then I would get the knowing pretty quick, and I would get some really strange knowings. But even when I was having her, I had weird visions. Like I was driving, I picked her up from daycare. I'm driving down the interstate, and I remember looking at the back of my hands, and they had wounds on them, like Jesus did from being nailed on the cross. And I'll never forget it because I thought, "What?" And I kinda took a double take, and then I didn't see it again. It was just kinda like this vision I had. I thought, "Well, that's so odd."
Right.
Well, the next day when I was picking it was one of those older car seats. I was picking her up from daycare again, and I was locking her into the base in the back of the car. And I put my hand in, my hands got trapped into the base kinda, and when I pulled my hands out, it tore the skin off the back of my hands, and I had open wounds exactly where I had
Interesting.
visioned them earlier.
Yeah.
So I was having these things and I was having them with my daughter. In fact, I knew she was going to die. I took her to the head of pediatrics. I begged her. I said she wasn't breathing right. I literally
Well,
begged him. I said, I really
I was
got a
gonna say
bad feeling.
let's pause because I have a cheat code because you and I spoke before we did the
Yeah.
podcast, but let's back up a little bit. And so you have the passing the baton deja vu moment. You're then older in 11th grade. You have the sense that somebody comes into your room and moves the waterbed. Between the high school and then having your daughter, are there other moments? And then you have your child, and
Yeah.
so walk us through that. So you're in 11th grade, and then that to having your baby, and then were you
What
having
happened
moments?
in between there that was
Yeah,
monumental? Yeah.
yeah.
Let me talk about that for a minute because that's pretty significant. Up until this point, I'm still thinking it's my imagination. You know what I mean? I don't have a basis to form. I don't have an understanding of what happens. I just wasn't raised that way or had that type of information available, and I didn't have books like that I read. The next really big one was when my father passed. I knew he was going to pass. I was waiting for my sister and brother-in-law to get off work, and we caravanned all the way from Colorado to Minnesota. So nonstop, it's about a 15.5 hour drive, only stopping for gas. So we were in Nebraska, and this is before modern cell phone service. I mean, I had a Mad Mother's car phone built into mine just for work, but it doesn't work in the middle of nowhere. We were in the middle of Nebraska, and it was dark, and we were driving along, and my dad came to me and said, "Susie, we can't go fishing tomorrow." And I can remember what it felt like thinking, "What?" And then I got this overwhelming sense that he has departed. He had been suffering from brain cancer. And my mother had called us and said, the doctor said 6 to 9 months. It had only been like 6 weeks. And she goes, I got a bad feeling. I'm like, actually, I think I got my gift from my mother. She says, I got a bad feeling. You kids got to get home right now. Like right now. Don't even wait a couple of days. Get in the car and come. So we're driving across. And I remember behind my sister, I'm flashing my headlights at her and her husband. And so we pulled over the side of the road and we get out and they're like, what? I said, Dad just passed. And of course, you know, they're yelling at me, "You're crazy. What the hell are you saying this for?" That kind of stuff. And I'm like, "I got a really bad feeling. I'm telling you, he just came to me. We can't go fishing." And he's very sorry. So by the time we pulled in the yard, it was around 2:30 in the morning. The farmyard, we had some, lights in the yard and the car, the car, lots of cars, lots of neighbors that were parked there. So when I pulled in, I knew I was right. And I just couldn't bear to get out of the car.
So you mentioned that your sister was kind of like, you're acting crazy, or was this something? Have did she? You mentioned that your mother had that gift as well. Was that something that you ever discussed as a family, or no? Like, if
No,
that's
because still,
yeah,
where did this come from? Why
yeah,
did I feel so strongly about this? Like, I
right,
still did not understand
mm,
that I was a medium. It
mm,
wasn't really until, honestly, after my daughter passed away, I demanded answers. I mean, I I was so angry. It happened before Mother's Day, and I had taken her to the head of pediatrics at Memorial Hospital, the best of the best, supposedly. And I told him I had a really bad feeling something awful was going to happen to her, that she was going to die, and that she wasn't breathing right. And he blew me off. He says, "Your first time mother, you're overreacting."
Very paranoid. Yeah.
And she passed the very next morning, and autopsy proved she had pneumonia
God, I'm
that
sorry.
she got from one of the kids at daycare. So now I'm angry, and being raised Catholic, that's wonderful, but I demanded answers. I
Right.
demanded answers. I almost died giving birth to her in delivery. And because I knew something had gone wrong, I'd gone to my pediatrician. She blew me off. It got worse. I went to the hospital. They blew me off, said I was over. I knew my placenta had separated and ruptured and covered my cervix. So I was literally bleeding out internally. So back in the day, her and I both would have died in childbirth, is what our tombstone would have said, but nobody believed me. So I had done all this to bring her into the world and then to have her taken from me because nobody would listen to me. And now I realize I know things. Like, why do I know things?
Mm.
So I got some books, Closer to the Light by Melvin Moros. That's a wonderful, wonderful book. I read it front and back nonstop, bawled all the way through it.
Mm.
But it's wonderful because they were real life stories about people, children that had died and been revived. And what their experience was.
Well,
So
that's
when
interesting.
I find somebody that's had that, I like the Sandy Hook people, I wrote a
Yeah.
little letter about why I was sending, and I bought one for everybody because for me, I found it, was my dad there? Was she scared? Was she in pain? All these questions you have, you know,
Ugh. Yeah.
sorry.
That's terrible. Yeah. No, you got me.
And that's one of the reasons I do what I do is because I know what that's like. No, those stages of grief, oh, they're real. They're really real. And, you get to the point where you're willing and dealing with God just to take my life, just let your child live. And I know that. And I do a lot of readings for parents who have had a child pass. So I get that level of pain and desperation.
So you're going through this awful time. You've always been a sensitive human being, right? You've had these experiences, but you go through this awful experience of losing your father, even more awful experience of losing your child, but you're rattled at this point, right? You feel like your physician didn't listen to you when you were going in for childbirth, didn't listen to you again when you said that you knew that your daughter was ill. Is this a moment where it dawns on you that I've had premonitions about this? This is something that's different? Or how does that unfold after she passes?
Yeah, so I started watching, it's kind of interesting. If you've ever noticed, like, if you're going to get married, all of a sudden you see a lot of ads for things to do with weddings and honeymoons and things. And if you're going to have a child, all of a sudden you see all of a sudden you're tuned into that subject matter, whether it be on a billboard or a TV ad or a magazine ad or whatever, email. And so I started paying attention to that, and I started reading a lot more books and watching shows. And I became a fan of Sylvia Brown and James Van Prague and some other very, very famous psychic mediums. And then listening to them, I thought, huh, that crap's been happening to me.
Mm.
So I learned how to meditate. Which was really hard. James Van Prague, he's hilarious. He calls it your monkey brain. You got to quiet your monkey brain. In fact, he was really hilarious. He was one of my first teachers, and he had said he's gay. And what was in the '90s? Everybody came out of the closet. Anyways, he says this is going to sound really funny coming from me, but I'm going to want you to go into your closet and close the door. He goes, shut off the lights, plug the underneath the door so there's no light coming in. You don't want to hear, smell. You don't want any of your senses to be firing, and you just focus on your breathing and learn how to do this. And it's funny because I'm sure I'm ADHD squirrel. I'm sure I'm ADHD, right? When that movie came out, all us that are just found that hilarious because
Yeah.
yeah, anything can
Same.
have our attention. So it was interesting because he says when you have a thought in your head, acknowledge it. Like you're for me, it never shuts off. It just and all of a sudden you're trying to focus on your breathing, black chalkboard, black chalkboard, black chalkboard. And all of a sudden, oh man, did I change the load in the washing machine, put it in the dryer? You have to acknowledge it and then let it go, right? You can't keep obsessing over these things. I had it mastered in about a week, doing it a couple of times a day. And you've got it when you think you've been meditating for 10 minutes and you come out of the closet and you look at your watch and it's been like over a half an hour and you're like, oh dang, really? Where was I? You know what I mean? Then you realize,
Well, that in and of itself sounds unusual. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would be listening saying, wait a minute, she figured out how to meditate in a couple of tries. That's, I've been doing it for 10 years and I still can't figure it out.
Yeah, for me, my journey was really quick, once I finally embraced what was going on. So then when I learned to meditate, I was, sitting in bed one night, and I'm trying to meditate, and, I learned, I've watched and read enough books to learn that we have angels and guides. So I asked for one of my angels and guides to step forward if I could meet them. And this beautiful gal stepped forward. She looked like a young Audrey Hepburn, and her name was Sabrina. In fact, she had a little clutch that was like a brick brownish red color she had under her arm.
I need more detail on this. So, so when you say, because, I've been there and I'm like, hey, I know that we say that we have guides, and I've been meditating and I'm saying, all right, guides, like, come to me. Like, if you're there, I want to talk to you. You're saying that you had an experience where your eyes are open and you see
No, closed. I
something.
had my eyes closed because I don't want any distractions around me. I didn't want to see anything in the room. I sat there quietly, no noise, no anything, just focused on my breathing and just blocked out any other thought. And the biggest thing is when I do what I do, I can't have a thought in my head, right? Because then I could easily conjure up my own thoughts, right? So as she's describing things to me, I'm like, so I immediately broke out of it thinking, okay, totally made that crap up. Okay, whatever. So then the next night goes, and I sat there and I said, I went through the same process, and I said, if I have any angels around, can you please appear for me? And I had this guy come, and he had wasn't dark skin, but he had a fair, a little bit of a skin color like yourself, and but he had brown curly hair, and his name was Michael. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, I so then I thought, okay, am I really doing this or am I just making this crap up?
Yeah, just
Right. So
imagining.
I hired three professional psychic mediums to give me a reading, which is a lot of money. And I only wanted to know two things: who am I and what am I, kind of deal.
Yeah,
And
cool.
as soon as they'd come on, how can I help you? Who would you like to connect with? I said, oh, this is going to be very short. I know I booked you for a half hour. This is 5 minutes. I'm like, what? I said, who am I and what am I? And every single person said the same crazy thing. And I thought, so then I started asking them, I said, okay, so I
What did
contacted
they say? What did they say specifically? I'm curious.
that I'm an old soul and I have immense power, spiritual power. And I'm like, when the first person said it, you're like, oh, okay, thanks for your time.
Yeah.
I really got to go now. But then the next person and the next person. And since then, I've been around some very, very famous mediums and they've complimented me in a very, very similar way. So that was very nice. So then I reached out to a gal that has been on TV shows and I asked her, asked her if I could pay her to answer some questions for me. And as soon as she came on, she goes, just a minute. And she's having a conversation over here with one of her archangels she works with. And she goes, oh, yeah, you're not paying me anything. I'm going to be mentoring you.
Ooh, like
And
that fast. Yeah.
I said, what? And I said, well, I just have a couple questions. If we could kind of do that first, because I'm thinking, okay, we're going to go down this rabbit hole and she's going to be crazy, right? So I said, I understand we have angels and guides. I've met a couple and I just want you to validate if I'm making this stuff up or if it's real. I said, I met my guide. Can you tell me, I have a guide? She goes, oh, honey, everybody has lots of guides. You have different guides that come in and out of your life throughout your life based on what you need. But we all come with basically one guide and one angel, but others will come in and out. I said, well, I met one. And could you tell me like what he looks like? My guide, right? I know it's Sabrina. She doesn't know anything. So I purposely lied, misled her to see if she'd
Hmm.
young, right?
Yeah.
And I said, can you tell me what his name is? And she goes, oh, it's your guide. Your main guide's not a guy, it's a gal. And I'm like, oh, okay, she got one thing right. And I said, oh, okay. What's her name? And she goes, it's like, it starts out like Sarah, but it's not Sarah. It's like SABN something, like Sabrina. She was trying to spell it. I said, you mean Sabrina? She goes, oh, yeah, that's exactly it. I said, well, what does she look like? Because now she's 2 for 2. I said, what does she look like? And she goes, well, she's really fair skinned, very dainty, shorter hair. She kind of looks like that young Audrey Hepburn. And I'm like, no kidding. She goes, yeah. In fact, I'm talking to her right now. She's filing her nails and she's telling me, yeah, you're a lot of work.
That's great.
So then I asked her about my angel. I said, well, what about my angel? What's her name? She goes, oh, well, actually, your main angel's a guy and his name is Michael.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking I was really talking to these people.
Yeah.
That's flipping crazy,
And is it this point where you say, okay, I'm going to build Crystal Peak Medium as a
No,
brand,
not
or no,
no,
not yet?
because
No?
again, I run a different business and I've been doing that. At that point, I've been doing it for 30 some years. Now I'm 40 years almost here. And so no, I don't want people think I'm crazy and then they won't hire me with so this was just on the down low. It's just I was just still trying to get my footing, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sitting in this class, this Zoom class for psychic mediumship stuff, right? And it was a class being held out of England and by a real famous gal over there. And anyways, we were paired up, right? It was all by Zoom. And she says, okay, well, for the first class, what we're going to do is learn how to tap into each other's psychic energies. And I'm thinking, and she's talking as though I know what she's talking about, right?
Right.
I'm a nobody. Clueless. So I'm sitting there just mortified going, oh, don't pick me, don't pick me, don't pick me. And so she paired us all up with different people. Fortunately, I was last to go. And I'm like, oh, because every time she's going to pick somebody you have to tell, like you and I right now, right? I've got to talk about you and your life. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, don't pick me, please don't pick me, don't. Now it's my turn, and I'm thinking, and I said, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm so sorry. I'm totally clueless. This is the first class I've ever sat in, and on day one, I'm supposed to read somebody. So she goes, just look at the gal and tell me, kind of just push your energy into her and tell me, what do you sense? What do you see? I said, okay, give me a minute. I said, okay, well, I see big trees like redwood forest trees in California. Oh, I see horses and a white picket fence. I see, and I started rattling all this stuff off. She's like, okay, just stop there. And she looked at Sarah and she said, Sarah, is any of that correct? She goes, yeah, 100%, all of it. And I'm thinking, get out of Dodge. You
Yeah.
gotta be kidding me. I just kind of felt like I might have just been pulling things out of thin air. You're making it up. So that went real well. That was 8 weeks long. So then I found another one online through Facebook and I was sitting in there. And again, this is a mediumship one. So I'm so impressed by some of the people in there. They get these guesses, like they would be able to say something. And I'm like, oh, how did they even know that? Right. So I sat there quietly for weeks. And one of the first things we do in the beginning of the class is, okay, everybody get quiet. She turns on some music and we're going to go into meditation for 10 minutes. When we come out, raise your hand if you think you have somebody. And I would just sit there muted, not doing a doggone thing. Like, I ain't saying nothing. I don't have proof,
Yeah.
right? Well, this one time, I came out of meditation and I put my little hand up and she goes, yes, Suzanne. Remember, now this has been going on like 3 days a week for weeks and I've not said a word. She goes, do you have a question? And then she goes, oh my gosh, you got somebody. Oh my gosh. Okay, Suzanne's going first. And it was like diarrhea of the mouth. I'm like, okay, well, I got this guy. He's an older guy and he's out in the country and he's got horses. I can smell the manure, but it's not cows, it's horses. And he's got a metal bucket and there's a trough out front and he's got blah, blah, blah. And I'm just rattling on all these things, right? She goes, holy crapola, just stop. Can anybody take anything? She just said. And the gal raised her head. She goes, yeah, that's my grandfather. And yeah, because I said his name is Larry. And she goes, yep, he didn't have cattle. He had horses. And yep, his name was Larry. And yep, the blah, blah, everything. She goes, well, keep going, Suzanne. And so I went, okay, well, he's doing this and this. And in the back of the house, there's this clothesline and blah, blah, blah. The well is on the ground. And then I realized afterwards, I burst into tears because I realized I've been able to do this whole time.
Yeah.
But I was expecting a different type of interaction, right? You see TV shows and movies and all the stuff I watched on TV and read in the books. I had this preconceived idea of how things were going to go, right? Like what that interaction would look like. When I finally went into meditation and I just let go, I felt this man's energy, well, lots of it around me. And I just let the one guy, I said, just let him come in, right? And then that's when I realized they've always been around me. I
Wow.
just decided to let him in. So that was one huge wow moment. And the other was, which gave me a real good sense, depth of some of the things I could do is we were in a mountain property and we were working on these solar panels we installed on the cabin because there's no electricity up there. And I had done a meditation inside and just thank spirit. And I actually asked if my dad was around because I have a lot of his things like his cowboy hat and stuff hanging on the wall. And I just asked if you're around, would you please come and talk to me? And I didn't really feel anything in the house. So I went outside to help my husband and I'm standing there in broad daylight, beautiful sunny day actually. And I'm watching my husband work on the solar panel gadget and batteries. And I look over and 3 feet from me stood my father. Like like I see you, he was standing there. And
Yeah.
I can remember I was so dumbstruck. I didn't even think to open my mouth and say anything to him because I'm thinking, you're doing this. Like, are my eyes playing tricks on me? Because I can see him clearly, everything. His snap up button up shirt he had on, it was snapped up. He had everything in detail, but I could also see through him. but I could clearly see him, and he was just watching my husband work on it and just standing there smiling. And I was like, and then after a couple minutes, he was there for 2, 3 minutes. He just disappeared. And I tapped my husband on the back and I said, You're not going to believe what just happened. Then I realized, wow, okay, this stuff is really, really, really a thing.
So I'm sure a lot of people are saying, well, why didn't she say hi for the 2 or 3 minutes? Like, did you, you were just gobsmacked. You were kind of like,
Absolute gobsmacked. And to this day, I talk to him all the time, but at that moment, I so regret not saying, hi, Dad, because he wasn't even looking at me. He was standing next to me, watching my husband just like I was, and just smiling like he was so proud and so
yeah,
happy. And so I just didn't expect that because up to this point, I'd been seeing them in meditation and sitting there and doing a different process to talk with them, not literally physically standing there. So it just caught me off guard.
I have a question about your first experience with the baton. I don't, and I'm intrigued by it. You mentioned that you didn't feel well
Oh,
when it happened. Is that
severe nauseousness. Just
is that something that still occurs for you, or is
no,
no?
no,
What
no.
was
The
that?
one thing that does happen, if there's something that's imminent danger, like we had the Waldo fire come into town, and my sister and her family were still living up on the hillside, and everybody was monitoring it. Hundreds of people, thousands of people, hundreds of homes had already been evacuated, but hers hadn't been. And I just got this, like with my daughter. I was at work and I knew something horrible was going to happen. I literally was having a panic attack. So when I have these panic attacks, you know, I just know something is imminent. Like we're
No,
talking within hours, like something horrid is going to happen. And so I've learned to cue in on that.
that's
Um,
interesting. I, I'm asking selfishly because I had an experience recently. I've never said, "Oh, I have this ability" or anything like that. But while speaking with somebody, I that we were discussing this topic, I felt like I had the flu. Like really felt like I had the flu. I felt like I was going to throw up. I felt my head was pounding. We got off the call. I went inside. I was like, "Oh, I have the flu. I'm going to lie down." And I never lie down in the middle of the workday. Lied down. 2 minutes later, I was like, "Oh, I feel fine. What just happened? Something just happened." So I was just curious. I was like, "Hmm,
you are sensing something in his energy.
yeah,
Is my guess is you were sensing something in his energy. His energy was really off,
yeah,
or something was synchronicity for you. So that can be very telling. Yeah.
yeah." It's interesting.
But it's not what I feel when I'm powered up, or I'll just be talking to somebody casually and I'll be telling them a story about someone in spirit. They love to hear me talk about some, so they always come. And I
Yeah.
know that is because the way they kind of ring the doorbell, let me know they're there, is my legs will tingle. And then when I'm giving a reading, I allow them to lock in and I kind of channel them. I'll let them talk through me and move through me and everything. And I'll feel everything. If it's a suicide, I'll feel and taste the metal in my mouth. I'll feel allow all that. That just gets overwhelmingly
You
intense.
gotta get into more detail. You breeze right over it. This is normal for you. You gotta help us because it's like when you talk about being you always say that you're an evidential psychic medium.
Yeah.
What does evidential mean in your work? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it is. So evidential psychic medium, I'm a little different. So some people, like everybody's a little intuitive, a little sensitive. You just get that knowing, right? And you're just like, oh, that's just a coincidence. No, it's usually not. You picked up on something, right? So everybody's got a little bit of something going on, right? So then you've got the people that are like tarot card readers and palm readers and psychics. And then there's different levels of psychic ability. All mediums are psychic, but there's different levels of mediumship, right? So some people can hear, some people taste, some people get a knowing, right? There's all these clairs, they call them, Clara Sellian, Clara Gustafson, Claire, um, um, oh, clairvoyance, where you see things. Different people have various different clairs. I just happen to have all of them. So for me, when I'm giving a reading or working with the police on a case, I will feel and see everything. So like if I'm tapping into the perpetrator, I will literally feel and see everything, which can be
That's
really,
awful.
really, really awful.
Okay.
Same thing with the victims. And so I allow that to happen.
Without upsetting you, can you walk us through that? Like, what is that like?
Well, I gave a reading not very long ago. It was kind of funny. because I brought in her father and I when the like I said, when they first come, I tingle. The legs tingle if I'm just talking about somebody. I'm not even powered up. I'm not even giving a reading. I'm just having a conversation. I can feel them from knees down, that they're there. They just tingle. It's kind of like if you ever had a TENS machine put on your muscles and you dial up the TENS machine and you get that
Yeah.
electrical tingling,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what it's like. But
Yeah.
when I lock in a reading, it's everything. But I also feel all of their emotions and all their pains, and I have all their knowings. And then they'll flash images. I'll see like images and whole movies kind of running through. It's a lot. It's a lot to kind of hang on and process. This gal's dad. He was locked in so hard with me. I'm literally shaking the whole time as though I had Tourette's or Parkinson's or something. I'm like, I just it went on for like 10 minutes. Finally, I said, "Can you give me just a minute? I gotta have a conversation with your dad." And I
Yeah.
told him, "Buddy, let go
Slow
of
down.
some.
Yeah.
You really gotta let go of some. I'm not gonna make it through this reading at the rate we're going." So that can happen. But when I worked on a case, series of cases for police department. I won't name them, but they're all on the East Coast. And it was one case that a guy brought to me that wanted help. It was a cold case. His friend had been murdered in the 70s, and he put up a big reward with no help. And he said, "Would you help me?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I would." And so I did it, and I wrote up my whole report and gave it to him. Well, unbeknownst to me, he gave it to the police department that was working the cold cases. Next thing I know, this guy calls me back and says, "Okay, well, this is what I did. So he wants to talk to you because you really hit on something. Like you gave evidence that had never, ever, ever been released. And he thinks it might be tied to other cases." Long story short, it ended up being a psychopath serial killer. Psychopath serial killer. And why I'm emphasizing this is I've worked with on other cases for the FBI and different things like that. But this guy, because he was a psychopath serial killer, he was extremely intelligent
Right.
and he had killed dozens of people.
Well, what's the difference? I think when I think of of a serial killer, I assume that they're a psychopath. Are there non-psychopath serial killers?
Yeah.
Is that
A lot of them are rage.
yeah?
They just had a moment of rage, or they're angry people, or it was done when they were drunk, or honestly, a lot of times they didn't mean to do it. Like, they just snapped. They just literally lost their marbles and snapped.
So then how does that information come to you? You said you create a report. You literally just write down what you see and feel. And how do you hone in on that specific murder case? Does he give you like a shirt, a hat, description of what happened?
Um No, that's not even necessary for me. So how I work on it is I don't want to know anything about any of it ahead of time because I don't want, like I said earlier, I don't want to have a thought in my head. I don't want to. Real mediums, we say don't load the medium, don't front load the medium. I mean, don't say stuff because you might send me down another path because now my imagination's going to kick in, right? I just want to go with a clean slate. So basically, what's his name? Are they missing? But just that's it. I don't even want a photo. So what I'll do is I'll go in meditation. I will call for them by name. When I do that, then I'll start to write down what do they look like, how old do they feel, all this kind of stuff. Then I'll reach back out and say, okay, now text or email me the photo, and I will confirm that that matches what I see.
Right.
And then I'll say, okay, give me some time. I'll go back to them and I will profile the victim. Like who are you, where do you live, what's going on with you. I will get to know them, and then I will get into like what's going on, it used to be that when they would come in the dark, like a dark background, I knew they were already deceased. But I learned the hard way that that is not always true. I worked on a case for the FBI and they wanted to know where he was and all this kind of stuff. They had me first profile the victim and it ended up being spot on. So they came back to me and said, okay, now do the perpetrator. We need to know where he is. And so I did all that. I even narrowed down exactly where he was at. But the thing is they said, is he dead or alive? Well, the visions I was seeing of where he was camping and what he was doing and where he was at was in the daytime. I seen the leaves move on the trees. It was a blue sky. I could hear the birds. What I didn't realize was he was showing me his last memories
Mhm,
before he took his life. And
mhm.
I said he can't live with this. That he didn't mean to do it. He snapped and he's not going to be able to live with this. And his folks know. It was just one of those kind of things. I worked on a case where um, it was for the FBI again. This gal and her dog went missing. The dog ended up washing on shore, like 10 miles down the stream. They thought the boyfriend maybe abducted her, and immediately I tapped into her. She showed me everything. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, sweetie. She was playing fetch with the dog in the river. She was throwing the branch out the dog would bring back. She didn't realize how deep and strong the river was. The dog got caught in the current and started getting away, couldn't get back to shore. So she ran out there, again, not realizing how deep it was. It swept her away and she drowned. And I knew I'm a scuba diver and I've done drift diving and regular scuba diving. And so I told our handler, I didn't work directly with the FBI, we had a group handler. I said, make sure they put drift divers in the water because the current has taken her body. And I described where they would find her and everything. And I don't know, a month or so went by and I reached back out. I said, well, did they get her? And they said, well, no, they put divers in the water. I said, I didn't say scuba divers. I said drift divers because drift divers, you go to the bottom, you go limp and you just let the current
Just
take you
let
wherever
go.
you're going to go.
Yeah.
Guess what? 2 months after that, a fisherman found her. She was trapped under a log where a current took her along the shore, right where so that was where it's like, son of a biscuit.
That work, I mean, it's a gift, but it's like that type of work, just hearing the story, and I didn't experience what you experienced, it's gotta be draining at the very least. I mean, how do
It
you
is. It actually, I use a lot of energy on it. It is very draining. If I'm going to work on a case, that's all I'm going to do that day. And I'm only going to do it for maybe 3 hours, 4 hours max. If it's an emergency thing, I'll push 4 hours. But I've learned where my threshold is. I was working on a missing persons case for a girl here in town. And I'd used my maps. I located her. I connected with her. I finally made a connection with her. I could see exactly where she was. She was in someone's house. She was watching TV in the dark. All this because I was so god dang stinking mad. I'm like chewing her up, going, anyways, I gave her the wherewithal. I got the knowing she was going to call her mother, and she said she was going to come home after school tomorrow. So when I got done and I let go, because when you're in it, the energy's flowing and you're fine. But when I let go, then I literally crawled out of here. I crawled all the way up to my stairs, all the way to the bedroom, and I crawled in bed with all my clothes on, and I just kind of fell over. I
zonked?
used it all up. And of course, I did call her mother as I'm laying in bed going, okay, she's going to call you. She's going to go home after school tomorrow. She's here. I didn't know the address, but I said, this is where I see her. She's safe. She's with a friend and all this kind of stuff. She calls me back about half hour later. She goes, she just called. She said she's going to come home after school tomorrow.
So so then I all right, so then I have more questions there. When you're saying that you're interacting with her and you know that she's safe and she's watching TV and she's gonna come home tomorrow, what do you think you're like, what are you tapping into? Are you're
Her
tapping
soul
into
energy, her soul
her
energy.
her soul
Yeah,
energy.
they are, for the most part, they are unaware. If they're alive, they're unaware that I'm having a soulful conversation with them. I don't know what the rule is. I've heard some people say when we reincarnate and come into this lifetime, only 30% of our soul comes, 70% stays in spirit form. It kind of helps us look over ourselves. I don't really know. I don't have all the answers to that. All I know is like, I don't think they know what I'm doing except that psychopath serial killer. I had asked because we were working on multiple cases. They kept asking me to tap in, and it just got to be so corrosive. It's so disgusting. I'm not going to share with your viewers, but my God, that man was just unbelievable. And I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done. Like, I cannot do that with his energy anymore. And he'd asked me once, he says, do you think he knows that what you're doing? I said, I don't think so. And we hadn't quite wrapped up the last case. And then he called me back and he goes, just so you know, because I said, do you know who he is? You've met with him, you've interviewed him many times and all this kind of stuff. And they confirmed all this stuff, who they thought it was. And then I was able to validate everything, which was really kind of what I do is validate their suspicions and evidence they got.
Right.
And so he says, I got to let you know, we've been tracking him for like 40 years. He goes, this is the very first time he's ever lawyered up.
Wow.
So that told me he knows.
He knows.
And I'm like,
I
bruh,
feel like
I'm tapping out.
I've had like a perpetual case of the goosebumps this entire conversation because it's like it's intriguing, but it's a little scary. Like it's a little
It can
yeah,
be really, really scary, but it can also be so rewarding. Gave this early on, I did like 500, 600 readings for free for people all over the world. I just wanted to practice and practice and practice and practice, right? And so I was giving this guy a reading. He was in Italy, and it's a cute story because he was on camera, but I could see behind him there was a woman sitting in a chair at the back of the wall, way back there. And I said, well, who would you like to talk to? You want a mediumship reading? He goes, yeah. He goes, I want, and he gave me two names. And I said, Okay, who's the first person? How are you connected? Oh, that's my mother. I said, okay. I said, who's the second one? And he says, oh, that's my cat. Well, let's start with your mom, right? So, because at this point, I hadn't been communicating with animals. I learned something in every reading I give. So at this point, I'm like, okay, the cat thing. Okay. So we started with the mom, and it was a beautiful reading. He was able to validate all of it. He was literally a grown man in his 60s, 70s weeping. He was just, it was really meaningful for him. And he says, I said, okay. He goes, okay, now my cat. And I'm Marta, whatever it was. And I'm like, okay. I said, I've not done that, but I'm willing to give it a go. And this is before I've been doing all the police work. So this was way early on when I'm
Yeah.
still practicing. This was years ago. So this is way before I really got a hold of what I could do. So I go into meditation and well, I'm still in meditation. I clear the energy field and I ask for his cat to show up. Next thing I know, I have 5 cats running at me with all their tails up. And they're running at me and I'm like, okay, all right. And you know how cats sit and twist
Yeah.
and wander?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I need you all to sit down. I need you all, please just sit down for me. I said, okay, I have 5 cats and I'm describing them all to him. And he's like, nope, no, no, no. I get to the last one. He goes, yeah, maybe. And I said, well, she's showing me that she had a special collar and a really pretty silver bell on it. And he goes, yeah. I said, she's showing me that. And I was describing everything she's showing me. Next thing I know, and I've been trained, do no harm. Do not ever say or imply anything that could be misconstrued or be harmful, right? Just don't do that, right? And I can give you lots of stories and examples of how people have done that. And it's just, so anyways, I said, she's showing me this glass dish. It's not like a cat bowl. It's like a people bowl, like it's china, like a glass dish. And you give her people food and you keep it in the middle of your kitchen cupboards in the top shelf. Next thing I know, this woman jumps out of the chair and runs out of the room. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, oh Lord. I'm like, oh dear, I've hurt somebody. I've said something. And she comes running back in and she puts up on the camera, like this, is this a dish? And I went, actually, that looks like the dish. She goes, yes. And she pulled the food. She goes, and this is where we used to keep the food. We used to give her, we give her their tuna, people tuna in this glass crystal bowl. So when the reading was all said and done, he goes, that's unbelievable. I've gone to over 24 mediums. Not a single one could bring in my mother, let alone my cat. And I can guarantee you had my cat.
It's
So
unreal.
that just went,
That's
huh.
crazy.
But
That's
see,
crazy.
I learned something in every reading I do. Not very long ago this summer, I was working with a gal. Her son had gone missing. I have no idea how old her son is. He could be 12. He could be 35, 40. I have no idea, and I don't want to know.
Uh,
Give me the name. We just know he's missing. Give me the name. To make a long story short, I tapped into him and said he's like 28 years old and he's blah, 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 all this stuff, right? It was all 100% correct. But now I'm trying to find him, and I use maps and pendulums to help locate people's energy. And I hit on 2 main spots, which was confusing for me, but she validated. She goes, no, that's where his girlfriend lived in Utah, and he spent a lot of time there. And this other one, yeah, that's where he was spotted last by people. So both my husband and I went there and put up flyers and so on and so forth. So that's where intense energy was. Well, now I'm getting mad because now I've been working with her for a couple of days, and I'm like, you didn't call your mother. I know your cell phone's not working or the battery's dead. I don't care what the excuse is. You contact your mother and you do it right now, right? And I had forgotten to silence my cell phone. So my cell phone bings, and I'm thinking, so I have to look at it. It's his mother. And she goes, I just got this text message. And so I pull out of it from her and I look at my phone and it's from her to her. And I said, well, where did you have your phone? Was it in your pocket? Did you bump something? And she goes, no, it was sitting in the cup holder in the living room over on the other side of the room. And I heard it bing and I got up. It was from her son. So now I know her son is gone in
ugh.
spirit because he can manipulate energy. Right. So now all I could say, they were in the middle of moving. Her and her husband were in the middle of moving. They stopped, they put their whole life on hold for weeks looking for him. And I said, you know, honey, because I'm never going to tell someone that the child's deceased, even if I know it. I'm not going to be that person.
Yeah.
I'm never going to take away someone's hope. I'm not God, and
Yeah.
I can be wrong. So
Yeah.
I am never going to be that person that says that they're absolutely gone, right?
Yeah. Well, you've
So
been
I
through.
just said to her, you know, you've done everything you can do. You're a wonderful mother. You know, he knows you love him. You need to continue moving. I have a feeling in the next couple of weeks, everything's going to come into light and you're going to get answers that you're seeking. But for now, you got to continue moving.
Mhm.
Okay, fast forward 2 weeks. I got a text message. They found him. He had hung himself in a tree in the back of a property. And I'm thinking,
Ugh.
and I didn't say anything in the text message. I said, I am so, so sorry. My heart just broke for her. And she
Phew.
says, you knew, didn't you? And I said, yes. That's why I told you you needed to continue moving and that everything would come into light and you'd get clarification in a couple of weeks. And I said, I just was not going to take away your hope. I'm not God. I can be wrong.
Tell me more about how you said they can manipulate energy. And this is again a very selfish inquiry because my father is gone and my whole family now, we laugh at it when things come up and, the Wi-Fi will go out, my screen will shut off, weird things will happen with lights. And it happened yesterday where my college buddy, Steve, introduced me to a work colleague friend of his whose husband has unfortunately been diagnosed with ALS Lou Gehrig's disease. My father passed away from ALS Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh, golly. I'm so
So,
sorry.
thank you. But we're having a conversation and it's beautiful. She's telling me about her husband and her sons, and we're both crying. We're both connected that we've experienced this awful disease, and her husband's still here and he's fighting it, and twice while we're talking, and it's never happened before, my screen just goes dark. Vroom. And I stop, I put in my password, and it opens up again. And then
That's
I
your dad.
mentioned to her, I said, oh, my screen, that's very weird. My father tends to manipulate energy and,
That was
and
your
do
dad.
that. And I said, my dad's here right now. And like 2 minutes later, it goes, vroom, and it closes again. And I open it and I was like, come on, that's crazy.
No, I was giving this gal a reading this a couple years ago, and I could tell. I said, it was a mediumship reading, but all of a sudden I just kind of stopped things. And I said, honey, are you suffering with depression? I see you sitting by yourself on the couch and like your fireplace, you got a brick fireplace across from the couch, and then the TV's over here, and you got a bank of windows over there and a lamp. And she goes, because I can remote view. And she goes, what the flip? You're in my living room. And
Get
I
out of
just
my
said, well,
living room.
the reason I'm bringing this up is you always feel alone and you're suffering with depression, but here's the irony. You're never alone. Nobody ever is really ever alone. I mean, no one's spying on you in the bathroom, but I'm just saying you're having a moment and you're feeling sad and depressed. Trust me, your loved ones on the other side, even your pets, will do everything they can to get your attention. I have pets come in on readings all the time, dead and alive. So it's really a thing. And she goes, well, because I said, you've always got 3 to 5 people standing in front of you on the couch trying to cheer you on, trying to like give you good energy and vibes. And she goes, well, how would I know that?
Yeah. Well,
And I
now
said,
you
well,
do.
that floor lamp you have over there, I said, your friend flickers the light on it. And she goes, what? She goes, I've replaced that light bulb several times. I'm about to throw the damn thing out. I said, no, it's your friend. And then her friend goes, heck, I would do it in Morse code if I thought she could figure it out. And when I told her that, she burst out laughing. She goes, oh my God, that's so what my friend would have told me. I said, well, learn Morse code.
Yeah.
Or yes, no questions. Say, blink once for yes, 2 for no. I mean, that's how she is using that medium to communicate with you.
Have you seen that happen where people can actually do that and then get a response, like question response type of?
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of a junkie for those kind of TV shows. I might have an EMF meter, and I might have some of those other gadgets, the Ovilus and things. So I watch shows that use those devices, and that is some real stuff,
Yeah.
real stuff. But don't mess with it, people. I mean, if there's one thing I want your your audience to understand is you want abilities, okay, I get it, but do not touch a spirit board under any circumstances
Yeah.
because
No.
it is a portal for whatever reason. Even if you draw it out on a piece of paper, for whatever reason, that thing works. And there's a lot that comes through that. And I would say the majority is not good. And they
Yeah.
have deviant and destructive things they want to do. And once the genie's out of the bottle, you're not getting them back in. So just learn meditation, take the baby steps I did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do it the
Have
right way.
you not to go back to a terrible thing, but had, I'm assuming yes. Have you made contact with your child?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting story. I kind of talk about that in my book as well. So I I found I was pregnant with her the day I was supposed to have my hysterectomy. So God gave me her to stop that. Well, we need to move forward with the hysterectomy, and I again found out the day I was supposed to have my hysterectomy that I was pregnant again. The next child, her middle name in Japanese means gift. It's Miyagi, and I distinctly remember driving down the road and I'd look back at her. This is when car seats were allowed to face forward in the back seat, but face forward. And I looked back at her and it was my first daughter's. All my kids, all my 3 girls look completely different, nothing remotely the same. And it was my first daughter, Morgan, looking at me. And I can remember exactly where I was on the road, everything, because
Yeah.
Again, this is before I knew I was a medium, right? This is 30 years ago. So I was listening to a radio show, a local radio show, and he had brought in a Native American couple from Hawaii that had the gift. And her and her husband were telling him things about his life and whatnot. And he clearly was a skeptic because he's coming unhinged. Like, who told you that? Who did that? I mean, he's like losing it. And I'm thinking, oh, that's a thing? Like, oh, so I looked him up and I called them and I booked a reading with them. And the first thing I did when I got on the phone, they said, what would you like to talk about? And she goes, oh, honey, you've lost a child.
Right away.
And I said, and then I lost it, right? I just
Of course.
unraveled. I started crying so hard. And she goes, oh, honey, 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 she's back. She told God you weren't going to make it if you couldn't come back. She goes, you have a daughter now, don't you? And I said, I do. She goes, that's the soul of your first child, which made total sense why I got to see her. She goes, she showed herself to you once. You've seen her. I did. But again, you think you're going crazy because you just miss her so much. So yes, my next child in line is the soul of my first child. However, our souls, I can say our souls aren't 100% here. A big portion of our soul, I don't know if it's 50-50, 30-70. I don't have that equation, but I do know part of our soul lives on in spirit, in energy. And that's how I'm able to tap into people and animals that are dead and alive, right? They don't even know it. And I'm doing this. And so this is where I gave a gal a reading not very long ago, and she wanted to know if this relationship she was in was going to be a good one and what her career was like and that kind of thing. So we were talking about that, and I was explaining what I seen unfolding for her journey, which she ended up validating that she had been thinking about, and she would be going there to do this and that. And she goes, well, what about this guy? And I said, you know what? He is like super smitten with you. In fact, he's sitting at a table. I see him sitting at a table, and I don't have a reference of exactly when it's happening, but I said, I see him sitting at a table like a bistro, like we're in like Italy or France or something. And we're on the street. You know how they have the tables out there? And I said, he's sitting there and he's having like a little cup of something, tea or coffee or something. He's talking to a colleague, and it's busy street. This was a beautiful day. And he's talking about you, and he's just bragging on and on about you, about this, this, and this. I told her what he was talking about. She called me later going, you aren't going to believe this. The moment you were telling me that, he was doing that exact thing. He had done that exact thing that day. Where everything was like, she goes, how in the world did you do that? And I'm like, it's part of the remote viewing thing. I think I do. I think it just naturally happens.
I was gonna say, I want to hear about remote viewing because it's come up a few times on the podcast, and I'm always so interested in it. And I know I think when we first met, I mentioned that I'm going to have on the podcast Thomas Campbell, who's a physicist that wrote a book called My Big Toe, My Big Theory of Everything. And he talks
Yes,
about, similarly to you, that like his first time meditating, it was like, phoom, like he was off, like in a different realm. And how he can remote view, and how he and his colleague have scientifically proven that they remote viewed together, like went to a destination, viewed stuff, and then came back. And his theory is, it's a simulation of sorts, and that there's consciousness, and then consciousness comes down and is inside of everything that's living to have an experience, whatever that experience might be. It goes back into consciousness to educate consciousness, and the consciousness goal is to evolve to pure love. But I find it fascinating because he's a physicist, right? Like
right.
he has this very scientific approach, and he kind of giggles. He's like, I've proven everybody right. I've proven, religion's right. I've proven scientists right. Like, so I'm wondering what your experience with remote viewing is. And then I'm also wondering, like, what do you think all of this is? Like, what do you think you're tapping into? You're giving us little bits, and you're kind of like, all right, percentage of the soul. But I want to hear from a global perspective, like, what do you think is happening?
Wait, let me unravel all that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, first of all, there's different ways people can become remote viewers. There's actually classes and courses you can take. It really kind of started for the military
Yeah. CIA.
decades ago.
Yeah.
And I've taken some classes from that institute. I won't say any names. People can research it online, but I've taken different classes from different people. But that is so rigid. I mean, you do certain things. It's so my goodness. My mind just doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's just you put in code, and then different codes mean different things, and you're jotting down certain lines, and you're mapping it all out, and it's all very like generic, and lines and shapes and symbolisms and things like that. And it works. I mean, it works. And if you're really good at that, you get accelerated and you get put in certain groups that work on certain projects for certain kinds of organizations. For me, it's not like that. So when I was sitting in a remote viewing class, again, we were partnered up through Zoom and they just said, do a partner thing and whatnot. And next thing I know, I'm standing in this woman's basement. She goes, well, tell me what's downstairs. And I said, well, it's unfinished. I can see the rafters, the wood. Oh, you have a single light bulb hanging. Oh, your washer dryer's over there. Oh, the washer and dryer sitting there. I'm on concrete floor and wooden stairs. You should really do the railing on the stairs there. She goes, frick. So for me, I just kind of go there sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and it usually happens a lot during readings as well. If somebody wants me, I can see things. But on a bigger scale, when we talk about energy, because there's a lot of people, well, I don't know if there's a lot, but I'm sure the world's full of people like me that our mind just goes there, right? I have a colleague of mine, he will never admit this, but he said his grandmother was that way. The whole family knew it. So they had when he was a boy, they had lost the keys for the car. So they called grandma and grandma tapped in. She goes, oh, the keys are in the grass 3 inches between the sidewalk and the school. So when you come down, described everything. And they went over there and sure enough, that's where the keys were laying.
Crazy.
Right. So she goes, I know this is real. My wife doesn't believe in it. It goes against our religion. He goes, but
Yeah.
and she would actually astral project as well, where she would literally travel to different places. And she almost didn't make it back once, he said. And she stopped right there. She just stopped right
All right.
there.
Well, unpack that for me. What's the difference between astral projecting and remote viewing? And why is there a risk of not coming back? Like, what does that mean?
Well, remote viewing, you are just looking, right? I'm sitting here in this chair and I'm just looking into it, right? From my perspective, I see it over there. Astral projecting, I'm there, I'm walking the sidewalk, I'm down, I'm looking around, I'm picking things up, I can smell the atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. So you are physically transporting your energy there, which takes me to the other part of your question was, how does that work? Well, Tesla proved the earth has energy. He put the copper rods in with the wiring and everything. His garden grew really big. And shortly thereafter, he was found dead and the FBI confiscated all of his notes, right? But we know the earth has energy, right? We know now it's patented and it's even being put in devices, 0-point energy, right? Which is coming out of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is full of energy. We can't see radio waves or microwaves, but we know they're there, right? Well, and we're energy. We're all energy. We just vibrate at different frequencies. I've been told many, many times, and I guess I believe it now, but I'm a very old soul. And so I vibrate on a higher frequency. That's what allows me so easily to tap into all this stuff, right?
Right. Right.
Right. People that are depressed or honestly nefarious people that don't have good intentions, they vibrate down here. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of things
And is
down
that
here.
what you think when you get a bad feeling about somebody, you think that that's what people are feeling? It's just like,
Absolutely.
yeah, that like kind
Yeah.
of,
And we all do that.
yeah.
Sometimes we blow it off, but have you ever met somebody and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, hi, how are you?
Yeah. And you're like,
Oh
whoa.
my gosh, you know what? I didn't realize what time it was. And you take 2 steps back because you don't like whatever that is going on.
Yeah.
It's a thing. It really is a thing. So I tap into that energy field, and that's where all the energy is. I make a long story short, I was giving a gal a reading once, and she wanted to know about this nonprofit she was starting, and she told me how she had rescued this horse. And next thing I know, I have the horse here. She's talking about the horse, and he just shows up. And I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. And she goes, why? I said, well, does he look like this? And I described him, and everybody, she goes, yeah, why? I said, he's here. He's alive. He's here and he's got plenty to say. And he just went on and on and on about all these different things. And she confirmed 100% of it. Okay. Now, and then when I went, she came with a friend. So now the friend's going to come and read and she's going to wait in the lobby. So I said, let me clear the energy and thank your horse for coming. I went back in there and he was doing this funny little dance. It was hilarious. So I went out there and I said, he just did this. And I'm trying to reenact it. She goes, oh my God, he did that for the very first time the other day. And she had a video of it and she pulled it up. So in my book, I talk about the story and a link to go watch the video with it. But now fast forward, golly, 9 months to a year, maybe, because my book had already come out. My husband and I were at dinner and all of a sudden the horse came again. And I'm like, honey, I got to make a phone call. And he goes, what? I said, it's the horse Denver again. He goes, what? I said, I'm so sorry, honey. I would never interrupt our dinner out about this is really important. So I called her and I said, hi, this is medium Suzanne Arns. And I could hear she muffled the phone. She goes, honey, it's Suzanne. We were just talking about you. I said, yeah, here's the thing. Let me go first. I said, I don't know what's going on, but whatever you do, please do not euthanize this horse. I said, I understand that because he had broken his back and his neck and he was a performance horse, a jumper, and he was only 2 years old. And so they were going to send him to the dog food place and she rescued him. Right.
Mm.
And now she'd had him for a couple of years and he was doing much better, but he cut his Achilles tendon on the back of his hoof. It was gonna be like another $3,000-$4,000 to fix him. And I didn't know any of that. I just said, "I don't know what's happened, but please, 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 you cannot euthanize this horse. Please do not do this." In fact, he is so important to your journey of what you wanna do. He's like the mascot, but not a mascot. He's like an icon, not the icon. He's like the face of the organization. He's like a, she goes, the ambassador. I said, yes, that's what it is. She goes, yes, he is the ambassador of my organization. And yes, he's injured himself and it's going to cost us $3,500 to $4,000. I said, please, for the love of God, do not euthanize this horse. And
Yeah.
she's like,
Yeah.
so was I though. I'm like,
So does it happen often where you're sitting in a restaurant like that where things just pop in your mind? Because I've
no.
met
I
my
try not to let it.
yeah,
I try to keep my energy to myself. I don't want to know what everybody else is thinking and doing. I make a point of not doing that. I kind of go in guarded. You know what I mean? I don't want to feel everybody else because most of them, they don't feel good. I'm an empath and I don't want to absorb that. I want to do it for the people who want me to do it for them. I'll never just randomly go up to somebody like, I've met Teresa Computer and she's a really nice gal on my medium, but on the TV show, they just randomly walk up to strangers on the sidewalk. I would never do that. And James Van Praagh gave a really good example of this. He says, let's just say you see an older man following a couple of girls going down the sidewalk and you know it's grandpa and he wants to talk to them. Would you go up and say, your grandpa's following you, he wants to talk to you? And everybody in the class were all like, he goes, no, you would not. Because for all you know, grandpa maybe molested her ever since she was a little girl. And now
mm,
you're going to tell her that he's been following her around
mm.
and trying to get to her? He goes, you would destroy her life.
Well, it's interesting. Gosh, never thought of it that way. Because I did have one of my questions for you was how much of your work is about closure versus new beginnings? And do you find that people are coming to you with those two intentions, right? Like they want closure from a death, or they're saying what's going to happen in the future. Are those pretty much the two?
Yeah, I do
leaning-
past life readings as well. And those are always, I'll tell you a couple of really crazy, interesting stories. They're always very meaningful. But on that note, yeah, they sometimes will come in, but things unfold in the reading. And when I power up, I always meditate and I pray. And one of the prayers is a white light protection prayer to protect me and my client when they come in and only allow entities of light and love to surround us and to block anything dark and negative, so on and so forth, right? But I also pray, help me improve the quality of their life. Help me do no harm, improve the quality of their life, and have them leave better off after the reading than before. So I'm doing a joint event. Some of us were doing a joint event with James Van Praagh, very, very famous guy worldwide. And it was a worldwide kind of thing. And I don't even know how many pages of people there were. And so I was one of the performers, one of the mediums. And if we had anybody, we were supposed to like let them know. And I had this young gal. Long story short, I brought in this 16-year-old gal who had committed suicide. And I said, I got this gal, she committed suicide and blah, 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 blah. He goes, okay, stop, stop, stop. Anybody in the audience, this is all by Zoom, know who she's talking about? Will you please hit the little button there and raise your hand? This gal came on. She goes, well, I lost a daughter who was 16. I said, from suicide. And she goes, yes. And then James immediately says, don't talk, because they immediately want to tell you everything. He's like, don't talk, don't say anything else. Keep going, Suzanne. So I did. I unfolded why it happened. It made total sense to the mom. Now she understood everything in great detail. It was really, really a great reading. It was very soulful for her. Everybody ended up in tears by the time that, even James, and by the time the reading was over, because I channel their energy, so I feel all of their love. I feel everything they want me to feel from the other side, everything. And so fast forward now about a year, and I get a call from her. She goes, I have been trying to find you, because it didn't give my name or number. It just said Suzanne
Right.
Owens. And so I finally found you. I want to come for a reading. She goes, I live in Denver, which is just an hour. I live in Colorado Springs. And I'm thinking, of all the places in the world, I mean, it was totally a God thing, totally a God thing. I
Yeah.
mean, she could have been in England or Australia. I have no
Yeah.
idea,
Yeah.
right? She happened to be an hour away. And I said, sure. She goes, well, you might not remember me, but you brought my daughter and she was a 16-year-old during the James Van Praagh event. And I've been trying to find you for a year. And I'm like, wow, okay. Now fast forward, she comes for the reading and it's going beautifully again. But here's where you go from giving somebody what they think they want for a reading just to communicate again to what they needed to hear to get on with their life. So it kind of answers both of your questions. So in the reading then, beautiful validation, it's great. But then the daughter says to me, the daughter in spirit says, tell my mom I'm pulling back now. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, wait, 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 what do you mean? What do you mean? She goes, no, I'm leaving. Because at this point, I think the mom had been in the grieving stage for like 5 or 7 years, quit her
Yeah.
job or whatever, hadn't gotten on with life again, found no joy. It was just total misery, crying every day, just in that lost death stage for years. She goes, "It's my fault because I committed suicide. It's my fault she's in the stage. So I'm going to pull back. I don't want to talk to her anymore. I can't stand it. I feel what she feels. So when she's like that, I feel it too. And I can't anymore. And now I'm thinking, my job is not to tell my spin on things. My job is to literally articulate what the other side wants me to say and say it the way they want me to do it. But I also do no harm. So I'm thinking, oh, help my lordy. I mean,
Yeah.
literally,
What do I
help
do
me,
here?
help me. What do I do? And she goes, tell her. So I said, honey, okay. Because at this point, she'd gotten 3 readings from me at this point, right? This was the third one. One was by Zoom and 2 had been in my personal. So she said to me, I told her what her daughter said, and she goes, what? And I said, she's all done with this. She's all done with you putting your life on hold. She understands. You got to understand, you're not grieving for her anymore. You're grieving for yourself. And
Yeah.
that's the big thing I had to get over when I lost our daughter.
Yeah.
You grieve so hard because you want them to know how important they were to you and how much you love them and how much you miss them. They know that. They get that. When
Right.
you continue grieving on and on and on, it's really became about me. I'm not going to see her graduate from high school. I'm not going to get to see her be a mom, get married. I'm not going to see her have a child. I'm not, me, me, me. And when I
Mm,
explained it to the mom, you're doing this for you, for whatever guilt you might be having or whatever. You really aren't doing it for her. She's with God. She's with the angels. She's in heaven. She's in a wonderful place. She's provided you so much evidential proof of this. You're really staying in the grieving for yourself. And she's done. She's
that's
pulling back.
interesting way to look at it. I don't think I've ever even thought of grief that way. It's almost like like self-flagellation after a while, where you just kind of, eh, wow, that's
So, and I
interesting.
said, no, don't come for any more readings. We're done. She's made it very clear. I'm not bringing her in for you anymore. So now fast forward about 6 to 9 months and she calls me for another reading. I'm like, no, no, your daughter made it very clear. Nope, we're done. She goes, please, please. It'll be different. I promise. And the minute she walked in my lobby, her energy was off the chart.
Really?
And oh, beautiful energy. She was smiling. It was like flowers were coming out of her. I'm like, oh my, we have much to talk about. She goes, yes, we do. And as she's describing what she's done with her life and gotten on with her life, her daughter showed up and was standing right next to her. And she goes, do you think my daughter will come back to me now? And I said, honey, your daughter came back to you a long time ago.
Mhm.
You just needed that kick in the pants.
That's beautiful.
So that helped her get on with that.
That's beautiful.
Crazy, huh?
How do you personally differentiate where you want to spend your time? Because like the law stuff, the murder stuff, that's scary stuff, but that's
Yeah.
really beautiful work in its own way. And then
Yeah.
you got this beautiful ending, but that's intense stuff because you're dealing with grief and things of that nature. How do you personally find a balance? Because just even listening to this, like I'm going with you through all these emotions, and I'm like, wow, that's her day-to-day life. Like h- do you pick and choose in order to keep things even, or you just kind of follow?
Kinda, but not really.
Yeah.
Like, one guy brought me multiple cases he wants me to work on, and I said, "I don't have the bandwidth to spend all my time and every day on all these cases." I said, "That is just unbelievably draining in such a different way." I mean, it's destructive draining. And, anyways, so I picked one. And so I would only make one day every 3 or 4 days. I work on that case. And then I only do it for literally a total of, well, it depends. Sometimes it's just a hour and they get their answers and we're done. Other times it's got to keep going. That particular case, it went on for about a week. And finally I said, I'm done now. I'm all done. I've given you everything you need to know to button that up. You know what I mean? And so
What is law enforcement? I find it so fascinating that like there's still people in today's day and age and be like, ah, she's a quack, she's making it up, she's researching online, she's doing whatever. But you have law enforcement coming to you and then
yeah, and I don't know anything about anything ahead of time.
solving cases.
Yeah.
does the did they talk to you about it? Did they say, here's what I think is happening? Or,
No, I don't wanna know that. They will when I start giving them evidence. I said, "Would you understand why I'm being shown this?" Like
yeah,
that one case I was talking about, the psychopath serial killer, one of
yeah.
the last pieces of evidence I gave him, I said, "He's hiding momentums from all of his victims in a church." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah, he's taken something from every victim, and he's hidden it in a church because he doesn't think anybody would ever look there for it." And he's like, "Okay, well,"
That
because we
is,
worked for a long time together, and he goes, "Well, all this has been freaking amazing, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about the church thing, but thank you." And then about 2 weeks went by and I get a text message. "Yeah, we went to check on our perv and, you're not gonna believe this. You got a minute to get on the phone with me?"
yeah.
And he says, "Yeah, he lives right next to a church." Tell
Oh,
me again about the church.
and
So, but I trust in God and spirit. I think they bring me the people I'm supposed to work with. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so I
yeah,
just have to trust that. Now, if someone's bringing me 3 cases right off the bat, it's a hard no. Pick
yeah,
your
too
most
much.
pressing, and we start with that because I don't have the bandwidth or the physical energy to just keep going down that rabbit hole. It's fun when, someone's missing and you find out that, well, she left on her own accord. She took her medication, took her, well, she's with this guy, he's an older guy, he didn't approve of it, and he's in the car. She's living in like a frat house, the college, or the other case, and then they're able to validate everything. They're like, oh, how the hell did she know that kind of deal? And I'm like, yeah, she's coming home. Just give her some time. Like, give her some space. You've been holding her, blah, blah, blah. That's great. You know what I mean? When I can do that. But that's pretty rare.
Wow. Do your daughters have this gift?
They have their own gifts. We're all different. That's a misnomer. Everybody that I don't have classes. I mean, people can get a reading from me, and I can usually sense if they got abilities. Like, I was giving a gal a reading, and we are talking. She wanted about a psychic life, and we're talking about, and the whole time I'm talking to her about her future and everything else, I could see like lightning shooting out from. I did a little video. They can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Anyways, it looked like lightning shooting out from the ends, like spark plugs at the ends of her fingers, and I'm like, okay, I gotta stop the reading. I need to address the elephant in the room. She goes, what? I said, you got like energy shooting out from the ends of your fingers. You got like healing hands. You should be doing Reiki. And that's when she said, well, I've heard that before. So I actually got certified Reiki 1, 2, and 3, but I just didn't feel like it resonated with me. So I went back into corporate life.
Huh.
So people have different abilities, but teachers that want to fill classes with students, they will tell. Like I met a gal at an event I was at, and she came up to me. She goes, I'm so excited. I signed up too to be an evidential psychic medium.
Yeah.
I said, "You signed up to become an evidential psychic medium. That is something you don't become. You either
Mm,
are or you are
you
not."
are, yeah.
Right? Some people, in fact, very few psychics are actually mediums. And if you are a medium, you might have 1 or 2 of the clairs, but having all of them is kind of a really rare thing. And I said, "Well, how much you paying for your class and who's teaching it?" She goes, "Oh, it's $10 a class and we meet." Well, it's a joke thing. And I said, "Honey,
Yeah.
you can't learn to be that. Now, you can learn how to meditate. You can learn how to grow your psychic abilities, right?" One of my instructors in England, he was kind of funny because he has this chart. I think it's on my website or in one of my videos somewhere where he talks about it. He says, some people, everybody's got a little bit going on, right? Kind of like what I was saying earlier. And then they can study and take classes and they can grow to be able to understand palms and tarot cards and
Mhm.
they can study for, I don't know, 5 months to a year and they get there and that's all they're going to get. And there's other people that can study for 10 years and they might get a little bit better. And he goes, and then you can have people that can study for 20 years and practice for 20 years and they might get to be a pretty good medium. He goes, and then you get other people, they sit in the class, they do a couple exercises and whammo, the door opens up.
Yeah, like you.
And
So
so that's the misnomer. People think they sign up for a class and they're going to learn how to be it. And I can be honest with you. I have spent tens of thousands of dollars on my training, tens of thousands, between $20 and $30,000, right? And I've sat with a lot of people in a lot of classes. And I will tell you 90 to 95% of them have no ability whatsoever.
okay, so that's interesting because you're kind of poking holes in essentially, I don't want to call it an industry, but your own, you know,
Look at the person who's saying it. Do
ecosystem.
they offer classes?
Yeah. Well, I guess how do you handle skepticism from clients or from the public or even from yourself when you know that there are people like that out there? Do you if somebody's skeptical of you, Are you just like, yeah, I get it, because that person's a quack, that person's a quack, that person's ripping somebody off, and that person's ripping somebody off. And do you concern yourself with it? Do you try to correct people? Do you try to prove to them, all right, let me give you a reading right now and I'll show you.
No, no, I don't do dog and pony shows,
Yeah.
and I don't have anything to prove to anybody. You either research me and watch my videos and read my book, and you can decide for yourself if I'm the real thing or not, or book a reading with me. In fact, I love it when somebody drags the skeptic to a reading because they don't leave a skeptic. So that's always really fun to do. But the thing is everybody's a sensitive, intuitive, empathic. Everybody's got a little bit of something going on. But
Yeah.
does that mean you're going to be this full-fledged psychic? You know what I mean? Or full-fledged medium? No, it does not. And you can spend tens of thousands of dollars and study 3 to 5 days a week for 20, 30 years, and all you can now do is really interpret tarot card readings, right? So
Right.
that's where everybody has some sort of gift, and I don't want to ever turn somebody down or break someone's spirit. But when you meet with somebody and the first thing you do when you sit down is well, tell me about yourself. What are your interests? They're fake.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
just feed off of whatever you say.
Sure.
Us that are legit, we don't want you talking. We'll tell
Right.
you when you can start talking, but no matter what kind of reading I do, please do not say anything before I begin, right?
Right.
Let me do my job,
Right.
right? The
So
fakes want you talking.
I find it all
I
so.
know I'm going to get so much hate mail for this, but if
Yep.
someone approaches me, I was at an event and there was probably 100 psychics there doing different types of tarot cards and readings, and some were good and some were not. Some were not legit. And when somebody would ask me, I just said, we're not all the same. I'll just tell you that. And if you didn't have a good experience with one, please don't put that label on all of us. Some
Yeah.
of us really are legit and we do it for the right reason. We're not looking for fame and fortune. We're trying to help people get through their lives.
So that's beautiful. So speaking about helping people, let's talk about your book a little bit.
Yeah.
What made you want to write the book? What stimulated everything about the book?
They did. They totally did.
Yeah.
I'm partly dyslexic and I'm ADHD. Being an author and writing a book, no, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Never going to happen. Yeah, I'm working on my second one now, and I'm going to be updating the first because Spirit's like, yes, you are. We want you to write a book. And I'm thinking, about what? Next thing I know, they started to allow me to start capturing the evidence. I don't know if people can see this, but evidence of the spirit world. And I can send you
Cool.
pictures you can cut into the video if you want. But
Yeah.
I have the ability, thanks to them, on how to capture the evidence of the spirit world. They gave me the name of the book even. There is no death. Evidence of the Spirit World, Spirits and Orbs. And basically it kind of talks about my journey, how I got to where I am, which people have told me they can really relate to because different things like that have happened for them. I talk about the various clairs, and then I talk about how to capture this evidence. I share some stories as well, some really fun stories like Denver the horse and stuff like that. The lady who died in the plane crash. What she had to say to me, that just blew my rockets. But
Come on, can you share that, or are you going to keep that in the
you
book?
want me to stop and do that?
You tell us, please.
Okay. So let me tell you that story then. So there was a United Flight 585 crashed over 30 years ago, not far from where I live. So one day I decided I would go there and pay my respects and let them know they aren't forgotten. And, but as I'm meditating, my own thoughts creep in my head and I'm thinking, a lot of us fly occasionally. And I've always wondered, I've been on some real rough flights before where literally I looked out the window and the plane was flapping like a dang bird. And I'm literally doing the Our Father and the Rosary and the Hail Marys. So I thought, what would that be like to be on an airplane that was about to crash? Like, what goes through your head, right? So I got up the nerve and I asked this older woman I was talking to. I said, what was that like? And that's when she blew my socks off. She said, it was joyous. And I thought, it took me back. I'm thinking, what do you mean joyous? And she says, we all went together before the impact. And when we arrived, it was like a big family reunion. And my husband was there waiting for me, and it was joyous. And for those of you that might think that's bullpucky, watch the show. There was 3 seasons, and it's called The Ghost Inside My Child. And these are all stories of children that remember their prior lives. And truly, you're going to sit there like I did and go
Mm-hmm.
on these stories. And the irony is, at least one parent, it goes against their religion and they're not having this in their house and all this kind of stuff. But the evidence is clearly the evidence. And some of these people died in times. In fact, I don't even want to give it away. I'm not going to give it away. But some of the stories were just so jaw-dropping. I learned something in everything I do if you just kind of pay attention. But that older lady that died in the plane crash, I knew I was talking to her. and another guy that was on business and whatnot. And so I got out my camera to take a picture, but just had my cell phone, and I'm like, oh fudge, because there's lights, but now it's dark out and there's just street lamps, and I'm like, oh fudge, I really thought I had her. 2 days later, Spirit's like, go look at your pictures, go look at your photos. So I did. I pulled it out and I put it in the book, and I pulled it out, and it's like this picture, and I'm like, and they said, look in the corner, and I zoomed in and looked at the corner. I think she's on here. To this day, she is the prettiest spirit I have ever captured. I don't know. Tell me, I can't see myself. So tell me, is this centered with my finger at the
Yeah,
end of my finger?
it should be. It should be. Yeah.
Where am I? Right there. That's her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's much clearer in the book and online, but it's just angelic, just absolutely stunning. In fact, it's tiny, tiny in the picture, and it's zoomed way up, and the clarity is still there. Doesn't look really good in that printout, but it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
I mean, I guess if you really challenge yourself, I guess it could be beautiful because when you realize there's nothing that you can do and you're like, okay, I'm going
You leave the body
before.
before the pain. Like your
Yeah.
body, I describe it like this to people. I'm currently a white girl with blonde hair. I drive a white SUV. Eventually, that SUV is going to get in a fender bender or a total crash, or it's just going to get too many miles on it. It's going to get in the junkyard. Well, I'm now without a ride, and I'm going to have to go to the car dealership and get myself a new ride. Okay. My soul is in this vessel. Eventually, this vessel is going to get in a car accident. It's going to get too many miles on it. And it's going to go in the graveyard. My soul still exists, but now I'm without a ride, right? And that's where we go back. If we have time, I'd love to tell you the story that
Yes.
happened when a family came for a reading. The dad was dragged, and he was an atheist. And in fact, he was so angry that they spent money on this reading. He had his sunglasses on, and he's walking past me with his arms crossed, just glaring at me because I'm full of bullshit and you're wasting my time and my family's money, and how dare you. So he sat as far as he could in the back of the room. Well, his son came in who had committed suicide.
Wow.
And the whole time he's like, who told her that? Who told her that? Because
Yeah.
again, I don't research anybody. I don't want to know anything because then I can't trust what Spirit's giving me, right? So he's convinced that somebody's tipped me off. Well, then it got really funny because then the son, because now I'm describing his job, his tools, everything. And I said, oh, you've had some things happen around you spiritually where you work. And he's like, no, I haven't. And I said, yeah, your son's standing right here. And he says, he threw a hubcap at you, like a hubcap, you know,
Okay.
like a hubcap, in the garage. And he goes, and you hear thing clanging. And he's like, what, what, what? And I said, oh, and he tells me, you have a picture of him on your phone. And that's when the daughter goes, I told you that was him. I told you that was him. He goes, bullshit. I'm saying bullshit. And like he's really defensive because he's an atheist and this is all a bunch of lies. And so I told his son, I said, honey, why don't you go by your dad right now? And I grabbed my phone and I said, I ran video. I said, go right past your dad right now for me, would you, honey? But right past his dad, I walked over and I showed him the video. He just lost it. Absolutely lost it. Right. So now the readings are concluding. We had a little bit more to go because he said, tell my family I'm haunting them. And I burst out laughing, and they're like, what's so funny? I said, he says he's haunting you. And he started to tell me all the different things he's been doing in the house and the garage to get their attention because he thinks it's funny as heck, right? Now that they know it's him, right? And so the reading ended beautifully. And the dad knows his son's now alive and very much still around him, which was very healing for him. But as he's walking by, and I always try to give people a hug goodbye if they want it. And I said to him, you want to hug goodbye? Because he went past me and he just stood there looking at me like you could just see the wheels turning. He was trying to process this, right? His whole
Sure.
life, he's in his 50s and this is all a lie, right? And now he realizes he's been living a lie, right?
Mm.
So he's just standing there and the wheels are turning. I said, can I give you a hug? And he goes, yeah. I mean, he just left. He had a lot to think about. Now, fast forward, they ended up hiring me to come down to their location in Canyon City and give them a reading there. But I didn't remember it was the same family. Because I do so many readings for so many people, I don't remember, right? I didn't. So I introduced myself and they're like, yeah, we know who you are. And I'm thinking, okay, great. And of course, this young man walks in. And again, the whole thing was just really amazing. But what he had to say with grandma validated everything. Even everything he said to every one of the family members, because he had me go to each one of them independently and talk to them directly, independently. Now he wants to talk to his mom and his sister and his dad and everything. It's beautiful because they know that he's okay, right? And
Yeah.
because so many parents, we have guilt,
Is there, yeah, sure.
and that
Oh,
helps release that guilt.
yeah. Is there, I've never been to a psychic reading for, like a one-on-one reading, but I always think about I'm like, oh gosh, if I went, I would ask for something specific or I would pray or meditate. Or do you find that prior to a reading that sometimes you have better readings if the person coming to the reading has prepared in a specific way or no? It's just kind of like,
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. No,
yeah,
that's very interesting you bring that up. Yeah. The thing is I know a lot of very famous mediums now, and they say if anybody comes with a preconceived idea of what they want, like playing trivia games, well, tell me what my dad drove and what vehicle he drove in the 70s and what color it was. We're not doing that. We're not doing
doesn't
dog and
work.
pony
Yeah.
shows. This isn't trivia. We're not playing games here. We're going to get into the weeds. We're going to get into very emotional things that can help you answer questions for you. Clients sometimes come like that, and I typically can answer questions for them. But it's mean. It's just mean to do that because it's not a science. When I'm connecting, as an example, when I power up, I feel an energy shift. Like I'm vibrating. I can feel the energy shift. And if someone's in spirit, I will ask you what's their name and how do you know them? What's the connection? And that's it. Don't say anything else. Then I will call for them. But I'm not in charge.
Mm,
I'm not the one
right.
dictating what they're going to tell me and who's going to come in. I will tell you who's stepping forward. I will describe what they look like, how their energy feels. But at first, it's very blurry, right? So I'll say, feels like this, seems like that, and then they'll start to show me like a lot of earrings. They wore a lot of earrings at one time, or they rip open their shirt and they've got something across their chest. It'd be like big tattoo across their chest. They'll start to show me bits and pieces. Then I will stop with the evidence and I'll ask them, do you have any idea who this might be? They'll say, and all I want you to say at that point is yes, no, maybe, I don't know. If you say yes, that's definitely my brother Brian. I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden we lock in where now I see, hear, and feel everything. If they're a doubting Thomas and they're like, no, I need more proof. No, I need more proof. It's really hard to lock that in. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
feel like they're the right person, but it's sometimes really, really hard to lock. A gal came for a mediumship reading. She wanted to connect to the person, and it was a beautiful reading, beautiful exchange. The reading was over. Next thing you know, here comes grandpa with a dog through the room. And Spirit knows I won't cut anybody off. So I said, oh, she goes, what? I said, we have visitors. And she goes, who? I said, well, it's an older gentleman. I think it's a grandpa, and he's brought a dog with him. And she goes, what? I said, what does a dog look like? She said, I said, well, it's a little dog. It's got cream and brown. It's a really little dog. And next thing you know, the dog's licking me all over the face, which I hate dogs that lick people on the face, especially me. I'm like, oh my God, he's a face licker. And she goes, he was a face licker. I mean, so it went on and on and on. He was doing these funny things by her ankle. I'm like, he keeps throwing himself against your leg and flapping down. And she's like, oh my God, he did that all the time. And I said, next thing I know, because I channeled them, right? I said, I have a horrible pain in my head. Like, oh my God, I've got a horrible pain in my head. And next thing I know, I'm twitching my eye and I'm lapping my tongue. I'm not going to do it because I can only imagine how absurd I looked. And she goes, why are you doing that? And I said, I can't stop doing it. It's your dog. And I'm like, and the pain in my head. And she goes, he had brain cancer. She spent $14,000 trying to save that dog's life. She goes, but why are you doing that with your eye and the tongue? I said, because it's pushing out a nerve and I can't stop. She goes, what? She goes, oh my God. Never once did the vet ever tell us that's why the dog was doing that. So the reading went on, and the dog had some really beautiful things to say to her. When the reading was all over, like now we're way over time. She looked at me and she goes, just so you know, in the car on the way here, I prayed that my sister was going to come in, and she did. And I also prayed that my dog would come, and he did. So that's why I don't cut off spirit, because it's so meaningful to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know what's going to happen. So when somebody wants to play trivia and 50 questions, it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, other very famous people say, I just cancel a reading. I'm like, we're done. We're done. This isn't the games we're playing.
Yeah.
Like, if you want a true reading, let's have a true reading. If you're just trying to test where I'm real or not, leave. I don't need to do the dog and pony for you. So I've not made anybody leave, but you have to understand, I'm not in charge. I can't make anybody show up, and I can't make them tell you the combination to the safe. I
Yeah.
don't have that ability. As a medium, I'm just the middleman, right? I'm just the loudspeaker. I just translate and tell you what they say.
Have you had it happen where somebody comes to you and you just get nothing?
No, that's never happened.
Guy, I'm thinking of it as the way you're describing it. It's almost like when your finger's wet and you're going on the edge of a wine glass and you have to be very delicate until you hear
That's a really
the
good analogy.
yeah, and then you stay right there. But you
Yep.
have to be focused on it and
Yes.
gentle and then it comes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because she missed the opportunity to have this amazing conversation with her sister.
Yeah.
So she really lost out. I don't care about the money. It's not that. It's just that to keep telling me and treating me like I'm a fake
Yeah.
when I'm really doing a wonderful job for you and I truly have your loved ones here, that is what hurt. But I learned a valuable lesson.
Mean
Don't,
spirit.
yeah.
Well,
So
I'm sure they'll do. What about, it's funny, I glanced up and I saw the time and I was like, 444. My dear friend Amy always says that, 444 is a good number and she always sees it everywhere. And I kind of chuckled to myself while you're telling the story and I saw 444. What's your take on numerology and numbers having meaning in a spiritual sense, or do you not touch any of that?
no, I don't really go into that, but there is something to it. Now, I don't know about reading the stars and reading your chart and, the time and place of your birth. I know nothing of that. But I do know that and I tell my clients this too, when you're looking for a sign, ask your loved one in spirit sometime in the next 48 hours. When I walk into the room, flicker the lights.
Yeah.
But then don't expect it to go up and up, up and up. I
Yeah.
mean, if the light bulbs flicker, that's golden. Or just say, give me a sign. And then you might be driving your car and you look over at the clock and it says 222.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Very
funny. There's
serendipity.
a woman that wrote a book, and I'm gonna forget her name, but I think the name of the book is Signs. And my dear friend Dave Morgan, he's friends with her. He recommended the book. She says the same thing, and I specifically asked something of my father. I was like, Dad, show me a sign, and then I forgot about it, and I was driving. And I asked for something very specific and very weird, and it was the winter time. And I was like, if I see this, it's going to be weird. My father loved peaches, and I said, I want to see a peach. Show me a peach. And then I forgot about it. And I'm on the highway, and and a, and a truck pulls in front of me, and it's just peaches everywhere. It was hysterical. It made me laugh, and I was like, yeah, okay, I got you. I hear you. It's
Isn't
good.
that awesome? Isn't that awesome? Yeah, but see, so many people will dismiss that.
Yeah, you have
That's
to be
just a
open to it.
coincidence.
You have to be open to it.
You gotta be open to it,
Yeah.
and if your loved ones are around, especially now during the holidays and things, birthdays and whatnot, take lots of pictures, especially in group photos. You'll often find an orb or two in those photos and or in those family videos. Yes, it can be dust, and I talk about it in my book. In fact, Spirit is allowing me to do this because part of my book talks about what's real and what isn't real.
Right.
And then I actually give you step by step on how to do it yourself, how to capture the evidence yourself in my book.
Oh,
So
perfect.
that's,
Because I was going to ask you that, but that's a perfect we'll leave it for the book. That's perfect. That's
yeah.
perfect. I was like, tell me. I'll get, we'll grab the book and we'll learn how
And
to.
if you have the book, there's a QR code in it that takes you to a private hidden web page where you
Ooh.
can see a lot of the videos the pictures came out of.
What's the name of the book and where can people buy it so that
It's called There Is No Death. It's in hard and soft copy. There Is No Death, Evidence of the Spirit World, Spirits and Orbs, and it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Archway Publishing. It's even on my website. Heck, anybody that sells books online, I think you can even order it through Walmart. So it's everywhere.
Wonderful. And you've got the second book in the works.
I'm working on it because I'm going to, the second book, yeah, I can go to historical locations and connect to people that were there at that time. In fact, the History Channel was going to put me on because I ended up talking to some Vikings, some Norsemen about the Kensington Runestone, and they provided me a lot of evidence that I was able to validate all of it. But then COVID hit and it all got kind of shut down. The budget went away. But I can go to those locations and actually capture them in pictures and video. In fact, sometime we're going to have to do a podcast about that because when we went to just a couple months ago for our anniversary, we went to Aztec ruins in New Mexico. And I ended up talking to a couple of people down there, capturing the evidence on video. And one of them came home with me. And the things that happened in the car and at home, and I have amazing pictures and video to validate all of it.
And it's all in the book. Darn it.
No, it's not. It'll be in the new book about that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I'll probably make a video or something about it. But it's really wild because I discovered we had a passenger with us in the car. And then when I went to the gas station, things were going on in the gas station. I'm like, what is happening? And then when we got in the car, my phone was doing stuff. And then it hit dawned on me. She came home with me. And she
Wow.
said, yes, you've seen where I lived and I told you about my life. So now I'm going to come home with you and I want to learn about your life. So she did. She hung out with me for 2 days. And then I said, okay, if you're still here, you show up for me, please. Will you go buy my cat? And it did. And I said, okay, that could have been dust. Okay, if you're still here, will you go go bigger through the room? So she did again. I said, I still doubt myself. And I said, okay, Oh, I'm sorry to ask you this, but one more time, can you get really close to me? And it went right up the camera, right in front of me. And I'm like, okay, you are here. Okay. All right. Just for clarification. Thanks, but now you got to go. You got to
That
go
just
back
gave me
home.
goosebumps. See, I think that would scare the heck out of me.
No, check my stuff out. In fact, I caught 2 angels in our bedroom in 1 week.
Come on.
But yeah, it's on my social media. Decide for yourself. Look at the video. It's video. Look at the video and I slowed it down. Look
Yeah.
at it yourself and you decide. Is it
All right.
angelic or what?
Where can people find you on social media, and what's your website?
My website is just crystalpeakmedium.com, and all of my handles are Crystal Peak Medium. So I'm on TikTok and Instagram. Those are the biggest 2 that I do, and Facebook and YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, a
Well,
lot of videos, a lot of information.
we're absolutely going to have you back on the podcast when the second book comes out. But I have to tell you, I knew that this was going to be a wonderful conversation. I did
Oh,
for everybody. Well, when we first got our first meeting call, you'll notice Suzanne has a trophy in the back. I actually had the same one all the way back there, which I found to be absolutely hysterical. And I said, "Wow, we're gonna be friends for a long time." That's quite the coincidence. This has been such a joy, so much fun. Thank you for tolerating my silly questions. Thank you for
my goodness.
spending.
Nothing. No, it's all good stuff. I could talk about this nonstop. I'd go hoarse. But
Yeah.
there's just so many things I've learned along the way that wasn't taught in Sunday school.
Yeah, and it's just so fascinating, and what a gift, and what a wonderful legacy you're leaving for the people around you, and the healing that you're doing for people that are grieving, I think is wonderful as well. So good luck with the sales for the book. I'm going to very strongly encourage everyone to buy a copy, and then,
Oh, you're
like I
sweet.
said, when you get the second one out, come back on and give us an update on that one, okay?
I sure will. I sure
Thank you
will.
so
Thank you so
much.
much for
This was
having me.
wonderful.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks so much for watching the Quantum Shift podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, comment, and share.